Hello and welcome to another Vista tips and tricks video. In the last video, which was an effects request video, I answered someone's question on how to create a timed flash effect using some of the new R3 functions that we have available to us. So we built this. This is a flash key that will bring our lights to full, but then fade out over whatever live timing that we set. So this is really useful and really dynamic, as we can change the decay time to anything that we want. In this video, I'm going to kind of lead on from this and show you some more of the advanced things that we can do with this system and some of the other new features that kind of link in with this way of programming. So today we're going to be looking at the flash autoplay feature and also how we can use our new dedicated cuelist feature to quickly switch between different bump patterns. And I'll show you what I mean as we go. So first I'm going to create a cuelist to kind of just demonstrate how the flash autoplay works, and then I'll show you a few more advanced ways that you can use it and integrate it with other features in the console. So as always, we're going to start with a new cuelist. I'm going to put it in my bump effects quick picker, so it's all together with any other manual bump effects that I have. So I'm going to right click, new cuelist, and we're going to call this flash pattern 1. Then I'm going to right click and edit. Now for this flash pattern, I want to do a simple kind of top, middle and bottom flash for my Sharpies. So I'm going to go over to my groups tab where I've got everything kind of separated out into its individual groups. I'm going to go into live, select my Sharpies, and then using a preset, bring them downstage. Just going to highlight them quickly so you can see that they're downstage. So all the position information is coming from live. We only want intensity information in this cue list. So I'm going to create 2 more cues, quickly going to label them. We'll call this top, call this one mid, and call this one floor. Now I'm going to make sure Q only is on, so I can just program what I want into each cue without any tracking. This is just a way to speed up what I'm trying to achieve here. So if I bring the top Sharpies to full in the first cue, now if I hit go, because it was Q only, nothing is tracked through to my second cue, so I can just quickly do my mid Sharpies, then hit go. And because no tracking, I can bring in my full Sharpies. Now if I quickly just bump through this list, you can see that I have 1 row of lights in each cue. And this is my flash pattern. Okay, so to turn this into a flash autoplay cuelist, we're going to right click, go to cuelist properties. First thing we're going to do is make the priority high, because I want to be able to manually flash this over other cues coming from the console. We're going to make it an autoplay, so as soon as I activate this list, it will stay active and it won't release. We are going to make the fader intensity time manual, that's automatically done for us as soon as we go to autoplay. And then we're going to activate the flash autoplay by going to this drop down here and selecting autoplay next cue after a flash. I'm going to go to timing, just going to make the release time 0, and then hit OK. That's kind of us set up to use the flash autoplay function. So I'm going to close, save and release, go to my console, drag and drop, and now when I hit the flash key, first it will play because I set it to an autoplay cuelist. So that means if I use the play button or a flash button or the fader, it will play this cuelist for me. So we get our first cue, which was the top row of our Sharpies. But now when I let go of the flash key, you'll see that it has automatically advanced to Q2, ready for us to flash again. So we have our mid, and if I let go again, it'll advance to the floor, ready for another flash. So now if I do it in kind of quick succession, you can see that every time I finish flashing a cue, I get the next one ready to flash. So you can set up basically different flash patterns according to what you want it to look like. But the really nice thing about this is you have absolute manual control over how it advances through the list. So I can quickly flash through a list, or I can flash and hold on any of these cues for as long as I like, as long as I hold down the flash key. And I can kind of have a combination of both. So I can kind of flash through the first two and hold the third. This allows you to kind of match up your manual flash pattern to any beat or any tune or any vocal that's currently being played. So kind of in a pinch, if you're busking a show and there's like a really strong driving track or a complicated beat pattern that you want to match, but you still want your lights to be kind of dynamically reacting to this rather than just flashing a whole group, you can now flash kind of a pattern to any beat or tune that's currently being played. But there's even more we can do with this. We can also, if we go to our cuelist properties, kind of add in our new flash, attack, dwell and decay settings as well. This is something we looked at in the last video. So for instance, if I now make the decay time follow my live timing and hit OK, close this list, save and release. If I now take my live timing to say 0.5 and hit enter, you'll notice that I still have my flash autoplay working, but now I have a decay time to every flash. This adds kind of another kind of intuitive function, and that's the fact that if I make the decay time a little bit longer, so say 1 second, I can keep flashing the first cue, and it will only advance to the second cue once the decay has completed. So I can use this to my advantage. So I can kind of keep playing that top cue, keep flashing that in, and when I'm ready to do the next cue, I can just let it complete, and then flash my other cues, kind of adding even more dynamics to how you want to use this list. And of course, because it's following lifetime, if I ever wanted to just go back to 0 seconds for the decay, I just type in 0 and we can flash through the list again normally. So these new functions really have kind of added in a whole new way of controlling your lists and your bumps and your groups and your like flash patterns, kind of in a truly live sense, being able to manipulate any of it over lifetime. So again, if I change this to 5 seconds, and I'll get a 5-second fade to each cue that I'm flashing and then advancing. And all of this is happening over one button. So I'm not having to flash and then advance manually. So this also saves a lot of kind of space on your console. If you have a lot of these kind of lined up, especially on something like the EX where you've got like 60 buttons to play with, you can have a different pattern on each button and you can quickly flash through whatever you want over kind of whatever time you want. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a few things you can do using multiple flash autoplay cue lists together. So if we quickly build another one, so I'm quickly just going to go to my quick picker, create new cue list, flash pattern 2. Same as before, edit to open. I'll make it another kind of 3 cue list. Same as before, we'll have cue only activated, so I can quickly just bring up the center and then skip forwards. Bring up the next row of lights, skip forwards, and bring up the last row of lights. So now if I quickly play through this, we have an in to out kind of flash pattern going on here. Go to cuelist properties, high priority. We're also going to turn HTP on. So depending on how you've got stuff set up, if you're going to be using multiple kind of active cue lists all together, HTTP for this kind of thing might be the way to go because it's highest takes precedence or highest takes priority. So as you flash between all of them, whatever one is flashing to full and is higher than the rest of them will be active, and it will stop things kind of conflicting with each other. But obviously this only applies to how you have it set up. So kind of just bear that in mind. If it's not working and you're getting some conflicts, try changing this to HTTP and it might solve your problem. We're going to also make this an autoplay fader, same as before. Exclude it from store, activate flash autoplay, release timing of 0, and the decay time will follow our live timing. So we'll close, save and release, throw this on another button, make sure this one is also in HTTP, which it is. And now I can flash my new flash pattern. I can flash the first flash pattern I created, but now I have them both set to HTTP. I can also flash between them. And this is really cool. So this means at any point I can create even more kind of dynamic flash patterns from the patterns that I've already built. And again, they all respond to live time on the decay. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is a few different ways of selecting which list you want to flash. Now obviously on an EX we have lots and lots of buttons, so I can simply just dock a load of different flash patterns to a different button and then just flash through all of them. But say I'm only working with an S1, I might not want to fill up every page with loads of manual flash effects. So what I can do is I can actually use either the on-screen quick picker with some of its new functions, or I can use the dedicated cuelist function to select and use my super playback controls. So I'm going to show you both of these because I think these are actually quite useful, especially if you want to be more kind of conservative with the space that you have on your console and where you want to put things. So first of all, let's look at some of the new quick picker options. To get to them, you just click on this spanner here, and we see that we have some cuelist icon click behavior options. Now the first one is no action, and this is the default, but the second one is set default cuelist. So we'll look at this one first. So if I select this, any cuelist that I select now will become my default cuelist. And you get a little tick next to it. And down here, your command line feedback will show you that this is now the default cuelist. If I click this one, you'll see that now that this has become the default cuelist. And now this has become the default cuelist. Now there are kind of like two main functions of the default cuelist. One, now when I hit store, automatically it will assume that I want to store to my default list. So this is a really nice way of just keeping track of where all of your data is going as you're programming. The second function is that now I have this cuelist selected, these playback buttons will work with it, even in live, even without it open in edit mode, and I don't even have to have it docked into my super playback either. I can be in programming mode, and these buttons will now respond to whatever list is selected. So this can be really useful, again, if you're trying to save space or you have a smaller console setup. What I can do is assign a flash key. So on the S1, for instance, this key is usually blank. I've assigned flash to it, and the key below it, I've assigned release to it, but these can be anything you want. And if we're playing with some flash autoplay lists, we want flash selected. So if I select the first one, and now I hit flash on this button, I get my first list that I can play through. But if I select this one, that same button now controls that second cue list. So I can have multiple cue lists kind of under one button, just depending on which one I'm selecting on the screen. So again, this can be really useful if you haven't got a lot of physical playback controls, or you've already filled up everything else and you don't want to have lots and lots of pages to go through. You can use your on-screen quick pickers to quickly select a new default cue list and then use your Super Playback hard buttons to control them. Another thing we can do is if we go to our new user configurable window, I've already set up a few different pages here. So I have one for my presets. Then I've got one for my kind of playback and output. So I've got my cue lists here and I've got my output here. And I might have a couple of choosers that I want to kind of flick through and look at. Another thing we can do is make a simple kind of cue list selection page for my either when I'm programming to decide which cue list I want to store into, or in this case to kind of decide which of my flash patterns I want to be able to play back using my Super Playback controls. So to do this, simply click Quick Picker, resize it and dock it where you want. We're going to select cue lists. We're going to go to our bump effects, so we only have the ones that we want. And again, from here, we can go to our settings and we can decide what setting we want. So, like I said, we can go to Set Default Cue List. And once I have this all set up, I can also go to Compact to give me a little bit more space. And now I can save this as a new kind of view. So I'm going to call this one Bump Effects. Make sure I've got Window Workspace selected and then hit OK. And now at any time I can jump between my presets or to my kind of bump effects lists. And I can select which one I want. And then using my S1, I can now play through or flash through using this button here. So that's something that's I've started to kind of do with some of the new R3 features, which is pretty cool. One of the very last things I want to show you is some of those other quick picker settings. You can now, when you click on a cue list icon, you can play it. You can play and release it, so you can basically play it, and whilst it's held down it will play, and when you lift off it will release. Or you can also flash. So because these are lists that are designed to be flashed, I'm going to select Flash Cue List, close, and now by simply clicking on the screen I can flash whatever list I want. So you know, you can, if you don't want to, you know, fill up your physical playbacks with all this kind of stuff, you can just create yourself a nice custom quick picker in your user configurable window, which is new in R3 as well, and literally give yourself a whole screen of essentially flash keys. And you can flash between them. They act exactly the same as a flash button on a console, so there is no difference. So if I now quickly bring in a look playing in the background, that has some position effects and some zoom effects for my spots and watches. When I play these flash autoplay cue lists over the top, you can see that they actually work really well with any other parameter that's working underneath it as well. You can see that I've got some zoom effects going for these washes here, and all this timed flash functions work really well over the top. The ability to flash through different patterns and stop and hold on any step that you like looks really, really good. You can also do it for things like blinders as well. I've got an odd and even kind of like top truss, bottom truss flash pattern with the blinders here, and also kind of an in and out with my washes as well. So the ability to kind of swap between them at any point and have manual control can work really well if you have kind of a base cue running underneath. Well, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about anything that I've covered, or if anything needs to be shown in more detail. Of course, if you have any more ideas or questions for other videos, again, let me know in the comments or on Facebook or on the official forum. And with that being said, I will see you in the next video.